See, now this is more like it. While I still cannot say that I absolutely and completely loved what I saw, I can at least say that it was good and fun. Vastly superior to the previous episode in basically every conceivable way. Not only was the battle a lot more exciting and enjoyable, not to mention just better overall with a lot more movement and better animation making it more dynamic and thrilling, but the way it handled both the narrative and the characters was just so much better, and it made a lot more sense. Plus, Roy won and he passed his test. All of this led to an episode that almost completely made up for the blunders of the previous one. I say almost completely because there is one small little detail that prevented it from being basically perfect, from being everything I wanted it to be. This small little detail is of course the fact that Fuecoco did not evolve, which I think is a massive missed opportunity. Not a deal breaker, mind you, but still disappointing. Not to mention unfair, but hey, it is what it is. And I guess that in some ways, it does make sense. It is a sensible decision. So let's break the episode down. I will tell you exactly what happened, my thoughts and opinions on it, and what I think the episode did right and what it did wrong. The episode of course begins where the previous one ended, with Roy lamenting his defeat. He wonders if maybe Ryme is right, maybe he is a failure of a partner. Thankfully, he is enough of an optimist to recover right away. In fact, he is too optimistic, since he rushes off to immediately challenge Ryme to a rematch that would almost certainly end the same way. Fortunately, his friends talk some sense into him. Nemona mentions that Ryme will have another concert at night. Roy should challenge her then. In the meantime, he should search for a clue on how he can win. To this end, she recommends that he does some awesome training, which, contrary to its name, is actually just your standard run-of-the-mill training. They do some running to improve their speed and stamina, revealing that Nemona, hilariously, is lacking in both, which is ironic and unexpected given her personality. They roll snow to improve their strength, which funnily Dot and Floragato skip out on because it's too cold. And Fuecoco runs up a hill while avoiding and deflecting moves. This is the only one without any funny moments. After the training, Roy and Fuecoco marvel at their physical improvements. However, they are soon forced to focus on mental improvements too once Nemona calls their singing in battle strategy repetitive and predictable, and Liko brings up the question Ryme posed of what does singing mean to Roy. To tackle both dilemmas, Roy talks about why he loves singing to begin with. Turns out that his parents love singing, and when he was a kid, he used to sing with them all the time. They are sailors, which is why they were not around back when Roy was introduced. They are currently on a long expedition. Even after they left him with his grandfather, singing remained a part of his daily life. This allowed him to befriend a bunch of Pokemon, which of course went on to include Fuecoco. I definitely did not expect we would get some backstory on Roy in this episode. This was certainly a nice surprise. While sadly we don't get to learn too much about his parents, at least we know they are out there somewhere, which could potentially lead to a reunion someday. This would of course be fun. In any case, based on what little we see about them, they seem to be nice parents that truly love their son. Hopefully we do get to see them together again soon. Also, I'm glad that in this series, the protagonists have a full set of parents, unlike Ash, whose father never showed up. So, recalling his past gives Roy the clue he needs to devise a way to defeat Ryme. To solidify this, he decides that he needs some more training. Nemona decides to help him, while Liko and Dot opt to go to the concert, which is about to start, to buy Roy some time. After a while, the concert reaches the open participation segment, but Roy is nowhere to be seen. so Liko and Dot are forced to stall. Hilariously, Dot says they must do something to this end, but she leaves it up to Liko. More hilarious still is that Quaxwell steps onto the stage himself, forcing Dot and Liko to muster their courage. Instead of battling though, they settle on a circus/parlor trick. Before Quaxwell stops dancing, Floragato must use her flower yo-yo to hit berries placed on Liko and Dot, who are afraid that Floragato's aim may not be up to par. Thankfully for them, it is. Their performance delights everyone and it buys enough time for Roy to appear. He re-challenges Ryme and she accepts after confirming his resolve. The rules are different this time. The battle will be one-on-one, Fuecoco versus Toxtricity, and Roy will only pass if he wins. So the battle begins with Toxtricity using Overdrive repeatedly. Fuecoco avoids each one, showing off the results of his training. Once he's close enough, he uses Flamethrower, which is deflected by Boom Burst. Fuecoco follows up with Flame Charge, avoiding several Venoshocks to grace Toxtricity. He then follows up with Disarming Boys, which made me scratch my head since clearly Roy did not learn that this is not the move you want to use against a poison type with Punk Rock. And indeed, the Toxtricity is unfazed, and it lands a clean hit with Overdrive. However, Roy and Fuecoco double down on Disarming Boys, which baffled me greatly, though it does make sense thematically given the emphasis on singing. Plus, to my surprise, their strategy actually begins to work, since Fuecoco essentially dances around avoiding everything thrown his way while peppering Toxtricity with Disarming Boys continuously. This eventually allows him to get into a groove, which makes him and Roy unleash their new trick. A new song, which I have to say is quite catchy. It's so catchy in fact that even the audience and Liko and friends begin to sing. And hilariously and adorably, so do Floragato and the others and Greebird, dancing included. Nemona reveals that this is what Roy and Fuecoco practiced with her off-screen. By singing, attacking, and darting around or dancing to the rhythm of their new song, Fuecoco is able to overwhelm Toxtricity, landing hits with Flame Charge, Disarming Boys, and critically, Stomping Tantrum, which Toxtricity has a double weakness to. Now during all this, Roy and Fuecoco start glowing red, which is probably meant to visually show that they are fired up and in sync. But I couldn't help but think that maybe this could be some special singing bond phenomenon. So their version of Ash Grid Ninja. Wishful thinking, I know. So, backed into a corner, Ryme terastalizes her ace. This is a powerful moment, since it perfectly illustrates just how much Roy and Fuecoco improved. Because Ryme did not use Terrasto last time, she just didn't need to. But now she was forced to. Roy of course responds in kind. Toxtricity uses Hex repeatedly, but Fuecoco avoids every single one and he closes the gap. One final Hex does hit him, but he endures and blasts through it with Flamethrower, which lands a direct hit, defeating Toxtricity. When questioned about their new song, Roy reveals that he realized that he was wrong when he said that he sings to get stronger. He sings to bond with others, especially Fuecoco. Singing allows you to share your feelings with others even if you can't talk. This reminds you that you are not alone, which gives you strength. Ryme approves this philosophy. She encourages Roy to stay motivated and she declares that he passed his test. She also once again mentions that she senses incredible potential from Fuecoco. She adds this time that it's up to Roy to bring said potential out. Roy and Fuecoco are of course delighted because they passed the test, and the episode ends with Grusha, who saw everything, walking away silently, Makes sense that he's here, since his gym is right next door. Like I said in my review of the previous episode, I don't like how singing was suddenly turned into a bad thing for Roy and Fuecoco after it had been their defining trait for so long. This felt like a betrayal of everything they had done up to this point. However, this episode was able to fix this by showing that it's not that singing is not a good thing for them. It's not that this is not their thing. It's just that Roy forgot what singing truly means for him. Winning so many battles with it warped his perception of it. He had to remember why he sings and why it's so important to him. Doing this allowed him and Fuecoco to reach new heights. They developed a new battling style that will surely help them in the future. They were also able to prove that they are indeed meant to be partners. Another thing that came into question that I also took issue with. While Ryme still said that it's up to Roy to bring out Fuecoco's full potential, which does not sound, at least to me, like a complete endorsement, since it feels like she's saying that there is still room for him to be an unsuitable partner. The fact that they defeated her and she encouraged them means that they are certainly closer to being ideal partners than they are to being not suitable for each other. The fact that they won also makes up for how badly they lost, though sadly Kilowattrel did not get a chance to redeem itself. Also, it's funny that once again Roy lost to a gym leader and then defeated them in a rematch. Will this be a trend going forward? It's possible, I guess. Also, all this talk about being meant to be partners and Fuecoco having incredible potential and the red aura they both had definitely makes me think, like I said earlier, that maybe Roy and Fuecoco will get a special something down the line that will grant them immense power. Like I said up top, the fact that Fuecoco did not evolve is disappointing because this really was the perfect time to do so. And it means Roy will continue to be the only one with an unevolved starter Pokemon. Since they let this great opportunity for Fuecoco to evolve slip away, I'm very curious to see when and how he will finally get to do so. Because he's definitely evolving at some point, right? Of this I have no doubt. I was honestly reminded of Ash's Farfetch'd, who also did not evolve with an opponent that made perfect thematic sense. However, in that case, we knew exactly when it would evolve instead, aka during the rematch with Ryme. With Fuecoco though, we have no idea. Maybe a rematch with Rayquaza? It's anyone's guess at this point. You might also remember that I said that Fuecoco not evolving makes sense and is a sensible decision. Well, the reason why I say this is that Ryme saying that he has a lot of potential that can only be realized if Roy is up to par only has weight and value if Fuecoco does not evolve in this episode. Because otherwise said potential would have started to show itself in this episode instead of being something that will surprise and delight us and them at some point in the future. So yeah, overall this episode was pretty good. It did exactly what it had to do. It made up for the disastrous previous episode. We got a much better, much more exciting battle. The questionable narrative choices ended up making sense once we got the full picture, leading to a satisfying and fitting character development arc that allowed Roy and Fuecoco to get stronger, both in terms of power and in terms of their bond. Their victory makes up for their painful loss. Ryme was much nicer in this episode, alleviating how harsh she was in the previous one, and Roy and Fuecoco's future is looking brighter and more exciting than ever. I cannot wait to see if they do indeed get some special power-up and when Fuecoco will finally evolve. Speaking of, the fact that he did not evolve in this episode is still disappointing, as is the fact that Kilowattrel did not get a chance to redeem itself. However, these two facts do not take away too much from the episode, especially since on top of everything it did well, it also had several cute, hilarious moments, and Nemona got a ton of screen time, which are cherries on top that ensure that it indeed ended up being a very good episode. But that's the review and the video. Please let me know what you think of this episode in the comments below, and click on the links on screen now to see my reviews of the previous 3 episodes. I will see you over there. Thank you so very much for watching.